Imagine a small settlement on the banks of a river. The year is somewhere around 753 BC. We are standing on one of the 7 hills overlooking the Tiber River in Italy. The air is fresh and the land is fertile. A handful of simple huts made of wood and mud dot the landscape. This is the very beginning of Rome. It is not a grand city. It is not an empire. It is just a small village, a collection of families trying to make a life for themselves. They are farmers. They are shepherds. They work the land. They tend their flocks. Life is simple, and survival is a daily challenge. This humble place holds the seed of something extraordinary, something that will grow to change the entire world. The people who live here tell stories to explain their origins. They speak of 2 brothers, Romulus and Remus. These twins were the sons of a princess and the god of war, Mars. A jealous king ordered them to be drowned in the Tiber River. But the river saved them, carrying their basket to the shore. A she-wolf found the crying infants and nursed them as her own. Later, a shepherd discovered the boys and raised them. This tale of divine parents and a miraculous rescue gave the early Romans a sense of destiny. They believed they were special, chosen for a great purpose. The story is a myth, but it tells us how the Romans saw themselves: tough, resilient, favored by the gods. As the brothers grew into strong young men, they decided to build a city on the very hills where they had been saved. But they argued over who should rule it. The argument turned into a fight, and in a moment of anger, Romulus killed his brother Remus. He then founded the city and named it Rome after himself. This story is dark and violent, and it became a core part of Rome's identity. It suggests that from its very beginning, Rome was born from conflict and ambition. Set the stage for a city that would be defined by both its incredible achievements and its brutal power. The reality was likely less dramatic than the myth. Archaeologists tell us that Rome was formed when several small villages on the neighboring hills decided to join together. They united for protection. They united for trade. This union made them stronger than they were apart. They built a common marketplace, the Forum, in the valley between the hills. This became the heart of their new city. It was a place for business, politics, social life. This simpler, more gradual story of growth is just as important. It shows that Rome's success was built on cooperation and smart organization from its earliest days. From this small, unassuming village, something incredible happened. Over centuries, Rome grew. It expanded from a single town to the ruler of all of Italy. Then it conquered lands around the Mediterranean Sea. Its influence spread across Europe, North Africa, Middle East. At its peak, the Roman Empire was a vast and powerful state, home to millions from different cultures. It was a superpower unlike any the world had ever seen. From a few huts on a hill to a sprawling global empire. It is a tale of ambition, war, incredible organization. So, how did they do it? This is the central question that has fascinated people for centuries. How did a small Latin town conquer its neighbors and then the known world? What was their secret? Army, disciplined legions of citizen soldiers. Engineering, built roads, aqueducts, cities that lasted for thousands of years. Law and government, frameworks for ruling many peoples. The answer is not simple. It is a mix of all these things and more. Opportunity, leadership, a relentless drive to expand and control. But Rome's story is also a story of fall. After reaching its zenith, the empire began to crumble. Enemies on its borders, turmoil within, economy weakened, political system broke down, society torn apart by crises. The same city that seemed indestructible lost power and unity. The process was long and complicated. No single event ended Rome. A slow decline, unraveling over generations. The fall is as dramatic and important as the rise. Why did Rome fall? weakened by constant wars and barbarian invasions, collapsed under its own weight, too large and complex, internal corruption and civil wars, new ideas, Christianity. Historians have debated these questions for centuries. No easy answers. Understanding the decline teaches us about challenges all great powers face. Rome's end, a lesson about the limits of power and the fragile nature of civilization. In this epic video, we will embark on a journey through more than 1,000 years of Roman history. We will follow a clear path, tracing the story from its mythical beginnings to its eventual transformation. We will not just list dates and battles. We will tell the story of the Roman people. We will explore their world, their beliefs, and their struggles. We will move through time, watching as the small village on the Tiber grows into a republic, and that republic transforms into a mighty empire. We will witness its golden age and its slow, painful decline. Our story will be filled with human drama. We will meet the people who shaped Rome's destiny. We will hear from famous leaders like Julius Caesar, the ambitious general who crossed the Rubicon and changed the course of history. We will see the world through the eyes of Augustus, the first emperor, who brought peace and stability after a century of civil war. But we will also listen to the voices of ordinary people. We will follow a Roman soldier on campaign, walk through the bustling streets of Rome with a shopkeeper, understand what life was like for a family living in a provincial town. To make this journey vivid, we will rely on the words of the Romans themselves. We will read short quotes from historians like Livy and Tacitus. We will hear from poets like Virgil and Ovid. We will look at the letters of politicians like Cicero and the private thoughts of emperors like Marcus Aurelius. These ancient voices bring the past to life. They give us a direct connection to the people who lived through these momentous times. Rome's story is about the nature of power, the challenges of governing a diverse society, and the meaning of citizenship. It is a story about how civilizations rise, what holds them together, and why they fall apart. By understanding Rome, we can better understand our own world. The legacy of Rome is all around us, in our laws, our languages, our architecture, and our ideas about government. So join us as we step back in time to uncover the incredible story of the rise and fall of Rome, a 1,000-year epic that continues to shape our world. After its founding, Rome was not a republic. It was a kingdom, ruled by a series of 7 kings. Much like the story of Romulus and Remus, the first king was Romulus himself. He created the first army and the first senate. These elders were called patres, or fathers. That's the origin of the word patrician, Rome's upper class. 2 of the last 3 kings were Etruscans. The Etruscan kings in particular brought significant changes. They were skilled builders and organizers. They drained the marshy land in the valley between the hills, creating the Forum. Life under the kings was simple for most people. The king held the ultimate power in the state. His power was absolute. What would happen if a king became a tyrant? The reign of the 7th and final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, marked a turning point. The final straw came when his son committed a terrible crime against a noblewoman named Lucretia. Her tragic story ignited a rebellion, led by a nobleman named Lucius Junius Brutus. The enraged citizens of Rome rose up. They drove Tarquin and his family out of the city and swore a solemn oath that they would never again be ruled by a king. The age of monarchy was over. The year 509 BC marks a pivotal moment. Instead, they created a new form of government, which they called the res publica. This was the birth of the Roman Republic. The Romans replaced the king with 2 officials called consuls, elected every year, and they held equal power. Each consul could veto the actions of the other. The Senate grew much more powerful in the Republic. It became the central institution of the Roman state. the Roman people themselves had a voice through various assemblies. Citizens could vote on laws, elect officials, and decide on matters of war and peace. Monarchy, the consuls, aristocracy, the Senate, democracy, the assemblies. A system that was both its greatest strength and a source of constant conflict. The early republic was deeply divided between two social orders, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the old aristocratic families. They were wealthy landowners who controlled the government and the state religion. The plebeians, or plebs, were everyone else. They were Roman citizens and they fought in the army, but they had very little political power. The struggle began in 494 BC. They went on strike. They marched out of Rome to a nearby hill and refused to fight until their grievances were addressed. The patricians were forced to compromise. They agreed to the creation of new officials, the tribunes of the plebs. Their job was to protect the plebs from injustice. One of the most significant was the creation of a written law code, the 12 Tables. This meant that the law was now public and applied equally to everyone. Later, laws were passed that allowed plebeians to marry patricians, to be elected as consuls, and eventually to enter the Senate. The engine of Rome's expansion was its army. It was a citizen militia. They were farmers. They would leave their fields and go to war for Rome. They developed a more flexible system. The legion was divided into smaller, more maneuverable units called maniples. Discipline was the bedrock of the Roman army's success. It was famously harsh. If a unit broke and ran, the commander might carry out a punishment called decimation. A successful general could be awarded a triumph, a grand parade through the streets of Rome to celebrate his victory. This brought it into conflict with Carthage. A clash was almost inevitable. The struggle is called the Punic Wars. They invented the corvus, a gangplank with a spike. It let soldiers board and turn sea battles into land fights. Second Punic War, Hannibal Barca, marched with dozens of war elephants across the snowy Alps into Italy. The most famous was the Battle of Cannae. Hannibal's smaller army surrounded and annihilated a much larger Roman force. It was Rome's darkest hour. At Zama in 202 BC, Scipio defeated Hannibal, ending the war. Rome emerged undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. Wealth from conquests poured in and created massive inequality. They bought up huge estates, latifundia, worked by vast numbers of slaves. Small farmers could not compete. Many lost their land and flocked to Rome, creating a large, unemployed, angry urban mob. Two brothers tried to fix it, Tiberius Gracchus and Gaius Gracchus. They proposed land reform. Both brothers and thousands of supporters were murdered. It proved disputes could be settled by clubs and by daggers in the streets. Violence became a political tool. Gaius Marius reformed the army. Now the landless poor could enlist. Soldiers became loyal to their generals, not the state. Powerful generals with loyal armies marched on Rome to seize power. Sulla marched first. The Republic split into wars between mighty warlords. Pompey the Great, Marcus Licinius Crassus. They competed for glory, wealth, and control of the state. The old system was breaking down. The stage was set for one man to rise and end the Republic for good. Into this world of chaos and ambition stepped Gaius Julius Caesar. He waged a series of brilliant campaigns, conquering all of Gaul for Rome. He was a masterful general, beloved by his soldiers. He shared their hardships and rewarded them generously. On a fateful night in January 49 BC, he made his decision. He declared, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. He led his legion across the river and marched on Rome. This was the beginning of another devastating civil war. Caesar pursued and defeated them. By 45 BC, Julius Caesar was the undisputed master of the Roman world. He was made dictator for life. A group of them decided that the only way to save the Republic was to assassinate him. On the Ides of March, they surrounded him. and stabbed him to death. They thought they had restored liberty, but they had only plunged Rome into another, even bloodier round of civil war. The main players were Caesar's right-hand man, Mark Antony, and Caesar's chosen heir, his grandnephew, Octavian. The final showdown took place between Antony and Octavian. The decisive battle was a naval engagement at Actium. Octavian's fleet crushed the forces of Antony and Cleopatra. The couple fled back to Egypt, where they both committed suicide a year later. At the age of just 32, Octavian was now the sole ruler. The long, terrible century of civil wars was finally over. He performed a political masterstroke. In 27 BC, he went before the Senate and announced that he was restoring the Republic. Of course, this was a carefully staged piece of theater. They named him Augustus, meaning the revered one. They also gave him the title of Princeps, meaning first citizen. But in reality, he held all the real power. He had brilliantly disguised a monarchy behind the facade of the old republic. Augustus had ended the republic and created a new political system, the Roman Empire, and he would rule for over 40 years, bringing a long era of peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana. Augustus and his successors built a sophisticated system to govern their vast empire. This was the imperial machine. For roughly 200 years, the Mediterranean world was largely free from major wars. This peace was the foundation for everything else. The long era of the Pax Romana came to an end with the death of the emperor Marcus Aurelius in 180 AD. Marcus broke with adoption. He chose his son Commodus. It was a disaster. He had no interest in governing. He was assassinated in 192 AD, plunging Rome into civil war. The winner was an African general named Septimius Severus. His deathbed advice: enrich the soldiers and despise everyone else. The political instability exploded into a full-blown crisis. In the 50 years that followed, at least 26 different men claimed the title of emperor. This constant civil war was a catastrophe. The entire monetary economy began to break down. The political chaos left the long frontiers dangerously exposed. In the north, Goths, Franks, Alemanni. In the east, the Sassanid Persian Empire. In 260 AD, the Sassanid king Shapur I defeated a Roman army and captured Emperor Valerian. It was a devastating blow to Roman prestige. The Roman Empire actually fractured into 3 separate pieces. In the west, the Gallic Empire. In the east, Palmyra rose to prominence, under his ambitious and brilliant wife, Queen Zenobia. But new soldier emperors rose to fight. Aurelian reunited the Roman world by force. His efforts earned him the title Restitutor Orbis, restorer of the world. The emperors who followed him, Diocletian and Constantine, knew the empire needed radical change. He created the Tetrarchy, the rule of 4. He split the empire into an eastern half and a western half. Each half had a senior emperor, an Augustus, and a junior emperor, a Caesar. He ruled as an absolute monarch. The emperor became a godlike figure, far above his subjects. Constantine the Great fought his way to the top in a series of civil wars. Constantine had a vision. He saw a Christian symbol in the sky, the Chi-Rho. He also heard a voice telling him, "In this sign, you will conquer." Constantine ordered his soldiers to paint the symbol on their shields. He issued the Edict of Milan. It granted religious freedom. He did not make Christianity the state religion, but he became its greatest patron. Constantine also made another decision. He decided that the old city of Rome was no longer a suitable capital. He chose an ancient Greek city called Byzantium. He rebuilt it on a massive scale, calling it New Rome. It soon became known as Constantinople, the city of Constantine. The founding of Constantinople was a symbolic and practical shift in the empire's center of gravity. The empire was still one, but it was now clearly divided into 2 different worlds. But in the late 4th century, a new and terrifying force appeared out of the east. These were the Huns, fleeing before the advancing Huns. A huge group of Goths arrived at the river and begged for permission to enter the empire as refugees. The two armies met at the Battle of Adrianople. The Gothic cavalry shattered the Roman legions. The Emperor Valens was killed, and 2/3 of his army was wiped out. The frontier had not just been breached, it had been permanently broken. Over the next few decades, the Rhine frontier also collapsed. The Visigoths, led by a charismatic and ambitious king named Alaric, in 410 AD. Alaric and his Visigothic army entered Rome. For 3 days, they looted the city, but they stripped it of its portable wealth. The psychological shock of this event was immense. The Christian scholar Saint Jerome wrote, "My voice is choked. The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken. The Vandals crossed from Spain to North Africa. In 439, they captured the city of Carthage. This was a mortal blow. By the middle of the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was a hollow shell. The real power was held by powerful military commanders of barbarian origin. In 476 AD, the commander of the Germanic troops in Italy, Odoacer, deposed the young Romulus. Odoacer gathered the imperial insignia and sent them to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople. The year 476 AD is traditionally used as the date for the fall of the Roman Empire. The Western Empire had not fallen in a single battle. It had slowly and gradually transformed into a collection of Germanic kingdoms. And most importantly, the Roman Empire did not actually fall. Only the western half collapsed. In the east, the empire centered on Constantinople continued to thrive. We call this surviving eastern state the Byzantine Empire, but its people never called themselves that. They continued to call themselves Romans. This Eastern Roman Empire would survive for almost another 1,000 years, carrying the legacy of Rome into the Middle Ages. The question of why the Western Roman Empire fell has haunted historians for centuries. There is no simple single answer. A tangled web of interconnected problems, political instability, military overreach, economic strain, cultural and social shifts. The Roman legal system is arguably one of its greatest contributions. The principles of Roman law are still with us. Innocent until proven guilty. The language of the Romans, Latin, slowly evolved into the modern Romance languages. English has borrowed more than half of its vocabulary from Latin. The Romans were master builders. Their innovations shaped the physical landscape of Europe. Many of Europe's most important cities began as Roman military camps. One of the most profound legacies is its role in the spread of Christianity. It was born into the Pax Romana. When the Western Empire collapsed, the church survived intact. Monasteries became centers of learning. Monks painstakingly copied texts. The church mirrored the Roman imperial structure. It was hierarchical and organized. It was divided into dioceses, a Roman administrative term. The story of Rome has become a foundational myth for Western civilization, a benchmark against which later societies have measured themselves. It is a story of incredible creativity, brutal violence, enlightened law, oppressive slavery, magnificent buildings, squalid slums. It is a story of contradictions. The journey from a few huts on the Tiber to a world empire and back to ruins is the greatest story the West has ever told itself. And it is a story that, even today, is far from over.